guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about my experience so far with a registered dietitian. And actually this is very preliminary, very beginning, because I just literally started. But I wanted to give a little bit of background on why I went this way, what the plan was that she came up for us, and kind of what she talked about what the future is going to look like for future meetings and plans and things like that. I kind of just wanted to have a place, because I know as people who have been around for a while will gather from, because people who watch my same videos over and over again will kind of know, because I'll mention things in those videos like why I'm eating the way I am, why I'm doing the certain things, you know, that kind of stuff. Whereas somebody who maybe hadn't watched me for a while and has found me again may wonder, wait a second, why does this look different? So that I just wanted to have a video where I could kind of talk about what led me to this point and all that type of thing. So hopefully that makes sense. Also, if people are interested, if I get enough interest, I will continue to kind of do some updates on my meetings with her and whatnot. So first, to preface this video, I just want to say I know that there will be some that watch this that may completely disagree and with the plan she's given me, her thoughts and ideas and opinions, and that's expected. And of course, everyone is definitely entitled to an opinion, and I completely embrace and welcome that. I just want everybody, though, to just keep in mind that what works for one person may not work for another. So if what I'm going to talk about you have tried and didn't work for you, and honestly, I don't know if it's going to work for me, because again, we are in the beginning stages, preliminary stages. But you guys, as you know, medical history, family history, genetics, age, height, where you are, even not every person my same age is going through perimenopause. Some people are not. Some people have already gone through it. I mean, there could be so many factors that go into everybody's situation. So I just want people to keep that in mind. If you say, well, I tried this, it doesn't work, don't bother trying it. You just never know. I'm just here to share my experience, and I'm just asking that people are kind in the comments to each other. If you disagree with somebody, that is fine. You can give your opinion, but please just be kind in the comments. That's all I ask. So for a little backstory, it's been almost 2 years since I started experiencing symptoms of perimenopause. Also, I do have my notes down here. You guys know I tend to ramble, and so I just want to make sure I have my thoughts and notes, and I gave myself a short time period to create this video in the hopes that I don't ramble. So it has been almost 2 years since I started experiencing symptoms of perimenopause. As I was starting to accept and manage the symptoms through mostly supplements or natural supplements, the way I was eating, exercise, talking with my doctor, things like that, other changes in my body and my health started developing. Also, for those who don't know, I do also have hypothyroidism, which I have managed for over a decade with medication. My annual routine doctor's appointments used to be just, like I said, annually, just once a year. We would check in about my thyroid. He would do all my labs for the year, cholesterol, everything, full CBC, all of this stuff. But those now have turned in twice a year. So now I am seeing him twice a year, and that is due to some of these changes that started occurring. And which he kind of expected, because I did talk to him about these perimenopausal symptoms I was having, and he truly embraced it and and said, okay, then we can expect to possibly see some of these things happening down the line, and now they have started happening. Some of those things that have been occurring, high blood pressure, and just so you know, I have never, besides my very first pregnancy, which I had a lot of issues with my first pregnancy, that was over 34 years ago. And since then, that was the only time in my life I ever had high blood pressure. With my other two pregnancies, with my sons, I never had not even an elevated blood pressure. I have always stayed on the low to normal range. But I have had high blood pressure every single time I have gone to the doctor the last 4 times. So over the last 2 years, I have had it, not to the point where he has ever said, let's do medication. But it's been to the point where I have to check my blood pressure every day for 90 days and send him records of it every 30 days. And it would tend to kind of just have these, ups and downs. Well, then when I started talking to him about the perimenopause stuff, he said that is very common for your blood pressure to fluctuate and change and tend to go on the higher side when you go through these hormonal changes as we age and we hit menopause. Again, that's not going to happen to everybody. You may be sitting there thinking, I went through perimenopause and menopause and never once had high blood pressure. Again, it's going to affect everybody. There is a huge, if you look up perimenopause and menopause symptoms, you are going to see pages and pages and pages of symptoms that people have had. And I have not had all of them either. And some people will go their entire menopausal journey and never have a night sweat or never have a hot flash, and where other people have them constantly. So again, everybody is different. High blood pressure is mine. Elevated LDL and my cholesterol. Again, I have always been very honest and open about my lab results, and I've shared them many times. My cholesterol and my triglycerides, all of my cholesterol, my HDL, LDL, total cholesterol has always been in a very good range until the last 2 years. Everything is fine right now, but my LDL is just a little bit elevated, but he has noticed the last 2 labs have been elevated, despite the fact that I haven't really changed anything in my diet. And so that is something that he said is also very common in perimenopause. Also, I am been noticing that despite the fact the scale has been going down, I've, not huge amounts, but, I've been averaging about 4 to 5 pounds a month, but I have noticed my belly fat has been increasing, and doesn't matter what I do, the scale goes down, the belly fat is been increasing. And it is so frustrating when you know that you are losing weight and you can see it everywhere else but your stomach. So again, that is something that is common with a lot of this stuff. But one thing that is completely outside of anything I've ever experienced, and that is extreme craving of sweets and being hungry even after eating, and really having that I am starving after I eat. And I never crave sweets. For those of you who have been around since the beginning of my journey, you know that it's I am a salty, crunchy snack. Keep the potato chips away from me, because those potato chips, crackers, those are my my kryptonite. I cannot have those in the house because they are not safe around me. Popcorn, all those kind of things. I only craved chocolate and sweet stuff during that time of the month. Maybe I would crave it around holiday gatherings, but not as much. I gravitate during holiday gatherings. I gravitate towards the cheese balls, the mashed potatoes, those kind of things. I am just not a sweet person. I have been craving sweet stuff, and to the point to where it's just what is going on? It drives me crazy because I'm just not a sweet person. Thankfully, I don't have that stuff in my house because I just don't crave it. And so I haven't really been giving into it, but it's just so weird to sit there and just oh my gosh, I just want a big old piece of chocolate cake. And especially chocolate. Chocolate is something that I definitely never ever crave. Super weird. And then the hungry after eating, I feel I just never have had that before. So those kind of things are so unusual for me. So during my visit in March, I had an appointment around the end of March for, again, just one of my thyroid checks, annual checks. During that time, after he saw my labs, we talked about all this stuff going on. He asked about, I asked my doctor, I said, would you think it'd be advantageous for me to see a registered dietitian? I asked if there's any other offices, and he said yes, there were. And actually he said that at the time he was thinking, thinking about all the stuff that we're talking about, I honestly think that yes, it's perimenopause, but I think you may be developing some insulin resistance. Now, this was actually, we had talked about this actually at my appointment the previous November. So prior to this March of 2024, November 2023 was when he first kind of brought that up, and that's when he started doing some tests, which I'll talk about the tests that he did. So that's when he did that test. The first test was in November 2023. Then in March of 24, he did the tests again, and then we did him again just a few weeks ago, back in November. So he said that because of that, he said that he would check with the dietitians in his office, but honestly, he did not think there was anybody. He also wanted somebody that's kind of specialized with women in perimenopause and menopause and insulin resistance. He just really wanted to make it meaningful for me. I knew I had to have a referral because of my insurance. My insurance would not pay for it unless it had been referred by him. And I mean, as far as like, if you want to know, like, what do I think about possibly seeing one that you find on the internet, on social media and things like that? I honestly don't think there's probably much of a difference. The only thing is my insurance is going to pay for one that I find out on social media. I knew if I got a doctor referral, and also just the diligence of him trying to find one that specializes in the things that I want to specialize in. So our doctor's office is also connected to OHSU up in Portland, which is our Oregon Health Sciences University, which a lot of our teledoc stuff through my doctor's office also goes through OHSU. So it's a teledoc service. And so he did get me set up with her, and my insurance is paying for it. So yay, I did get something saying that they would pay for it, since it was had to do with my health and related to some tests I've had taken. So I finally got connected in November. That's how long it took though. And I was supposed to go see my doctor, if you remember, like beginning in November, but then I ended up getting COVID, and so I had to push it off until like 10 days after. So here are the tests that he had me do. He did a fasting blood glucose test. Now, back in November 2023, we only did the fasting blood glucose test and the A1C. He was just doing because with things we had talked about with the perimenopause and stuff, and he just wanted to see how it looked. I honestly cannot remember what my numbers were back then. They were not bad, so he wasn't concerned. But then when we talked in March, he said, well, let's do these again. So after my appointment with him, he ran them, and then we did them again in November. We just did them again last month. So my fasting blood glucose tests have showed elevated numbers these last 3 times. So they've been running around between 110 and 115. I want to say one was 110, one was 111. I don't think one was 115. I want to say they're around, I even think one was 108. Maybe 108, 111, 110. I should have looked them up because I can look on my chart. So those ones were running. So that was what made him a little concerned, because previously they always ran in the 80s. And then he had me do an oral glucose, and that is the one that you drink that drink, and then you do the test after that. I think you have to wait a couple hours, and then you take the test. So you drink the drink, take the test. Those numbers have been right around 138 both times, which he said is not a concern to him because it's on the higher end of the low. So he said that he gets concerned when he sees anything around 140 to and higher with that test. And then he had me do my A1C, which I think the first time it was 5.4 in March. This time it was 5.2, which is that he said again, when you start looking at the 5.7, 5.86, that's when he gets concerned, and what he would consider to be pre-diabetic. Now, I don't know if there's a standard pre-diabetic numbers. I just listen to my doctor, and he just tells me, he calls me and we discuss them. He did say that my fasting blood glucose, it would be in a range of pre-diabetic if these other 2 also were in that range. But he said that just because of where the numbers are, he does believe I am developing some sort of insulin resistance, which is common for some people in perimenopause. So that was all the data that he provided to me and with my permission, to this registered dietitian. So let's fast forward to last month. I had my initial consult with my dietitian. The things I had to do for pre-work, just so you know, if you ever go to work with one, they may all do it a little bit different. Who knows? But there was a survey she had me take, and then she had me track my food for a week, and a food log, which was easy for me since I do it most of the time anyway. And then I just had to download that and send it over to her. Most food tracking apps, and see, I paid for Lose It Premium because I got it on a great deal that was like a lifetime membership deal. So I just continue to renew it, and I have the capability to download from there. I don't know if all food tracking apps have that capability, but I was able to do so. And so I just downloaded it, uploaded it to my portal from my doctor's office, and then she was able to grab that. And then there's a little survey she sent out, and it basically just asks your age, your height, your weight, any medical conditions you have. Also, hypothyroidism is a type of autoimmune disease, which does put you in risk for insulin resistance as well. So it's not uncommon to see people who have hypothyroidism also have insulin resistance, also have prediabetes and diabetes. So the survey just kind of asks that, your family medical history, like has anybody in your family had diabetes, the hypothyroidism, those kind of things. Which, as far as I know, which I probably should ask my mom, but as far as I know, there's no history of diabetes in my family. And it also asked like what I did for work, how often I move, my, exercise routines, lack of exercise routines, if I was married, how many kids, just kind of your family dynamic. And then kind of like what kind of foods do I like, and like what do I crave, what do I snack on, things like that. Those were kind of some basic stuff. So I did that survey about a week before I met with her. So the first initial consultation was we kind of just went through the survey, and she just wanted to make sure, does this sound correct? Does this look good? I just want to, it was very quick. But then my second meeting with her was our actual okay, here we go. And this is what she came up with. Now, I should say that she definitely is on the slower approach. She is okay, here's what we're going to give you, but I'm not going to tell you this is an all or nothing plan, and let's do it, and you have to be all in or that's not going to work. She definitely does not play that way. She also says you probably have things in your freezers, in your pantries that, I don't want you to waste food. So we're going to start slow. Go ahead and use up that stuff if you want to. Give it away to people if that's what you want to do. But she is not she was just let's just take this first 30 days. And she even said 30 to 45 days to just get used to this and to absorb it and to think about it and figure out what to do. And then I see her again in January. I also see my doctor January 8th, I think. And I think I see her January 12th, I believe, 12th or 13th. So here's the plan she came up with. And I'll kind of tell you why. I don't have all the notes on that, and most of it's just in my head. But as far as food, she believes that a low-carb meal plan works best with insulin resistance. This is a reason why she says that. And as she said, if you naturally eat low carb, you're naturally going to pick foods that are low on the glycemic index, which is what helps drive your insulin levels. So basically, if you eat foods that are low on the glycemic index, then you're not going to have those blood sugar spikes, and it'll really help balance out your insulin. And these kind of things kind of go over my head. So it made sense to me, and but she is not saying low carb. So I was well, so are you talking 50? And I kept talking in terms of net carbs, having been from a background where I did keto for a while. And she said, no, I do not do, she goes, I don't agree with net carbs. And it's not that she doesn't agree with them. She understands the science behind them. She said the only reason why she never suggests that her clients follow net carbs has to do more with the fact that there are so many products marketed out there that are ultra processed that are marketed towards net carbs. So she's talking about those tortillas that they'll say these tortillas are 0 net carbs, but you look at the carbs on the back and they really truly are 14 total carbs for a tortilla. but they have all that fiber in there. And she says sometimes that fiber is not the type of fiber that is quality. Like, she definitely wants you to get fiber in, but not that kind of fiber necessarily. And that's the reason why she said some people, like I told her, I said, well, that's interesting because there's some of those tortillas I can't eat because they really affect my stomach. And she said, exactly, because it's not the type of quality fiber that she would like to see her clients eat. Now, she's not saying, she's like, does that mean you can never have one of those tortillas? Absolutely not. She just would prefer, if I do have one, I'm going to count it into my total carb count, not the net carb count. And that's the only reason why she says that, is just because there tends to be so many of those marketed processed foods. Now, again, I said, so are you saying that no processed food? She goes, I would never tell somebody to not eat processed foods. She said, I would be a hypocrite if I said I never ate a processed food. She's just saying, try to pick whole foods first rather than going towards those processed foods. But she said, again, you probably have some of those foods right now. Don't just throw them away because I'm telling you this. And she said, honestly, she's like, if I were to say no processed foods, that would be mean I'm making my own mustard, my own mayonnaise, my own ketchup. She goes, am I doing that? No, I'm not doing that. So she said, you know, it's just people get hung up on that processed food thing. And she's just talking about some of those super ultra processed foods, or just those foods marketed as saying net carbs, where it may just have fiber that's not a fiber that your body may agree with. So that's the only reason why she's saying total carbs, not net carbs. Then you just truly are picking like whole fruits, whole vegetables, whole grains, you know, lean proteins, those types of things. And she said to try to, so I said, okay, so what are we talking then for total carbs? And she said that it's not, she said, okay, well, let's just say it this way, 100 or less. But I said, okay, so like how it balances out. She goes, no, honestly, she's like, she feels like that your blood sugar, to keep your blood sugar kind of level and not to have these spikes, or, you know, and not to aggravate the insulin resistance. I can't remember the wording she actually used. By keeping your meals at a certain amount of carbs for each meal. So it's like not having like saying, okay, I'm going to have 60 carbs on this dinner. So that means these other ones, I'm just going to do 10 and 20. So I hit my 100. She said, then you could really be at the risk of some blood sugar spikes. Her idea is to try to keep all your meals pretty even. So like about 30 total carbs or less at each main meal. So like breakfast, lunch, dinner, 30 or less. For any snacks, try to keep them around 15 to 20. And I told her, I said, well, I'm not a huge snacker until recently. Like, I'm just craving stuff. And I said, so do I need to eat snacks? And she said, no, absolutely not. But she's just saying that when you go to pick a snack, that you will pick maybe vegetables, hummus, fruit, things like that. If you give yourself around 15 grams of carbs, then you tend to maybe pick some real quality type things. Now you may be saying then, so people are thinking, you said fruit, you said vegetables, you said whole grains. She told me that she personally would not track non-starchy vegetables, and like she said, she didn't say non-starchy fruits, but she say, fruits that are low on the glycemic index. And she gave examples of grapefruit, apples, which I was surprised. I always thought because apples were higher carbs, but she said, but they are very low on the glycemic index. And I think, if I remember right, which I could be wrong, I thought she said they were lower than blueberries, which you feel like you see a lot of people who are low carb and keto are going for the berries. But if the apples are even lower on the index than blueberries, it's interesting that apples are not brought up more. But she said grapefruit is great. And she goes, do you like grapefruit? I said, I love grapefruit. I have not had a broiled grapefruit in so long, and I feel like, this is a new breakfast for me. I haven't had it in a long time. So she said grapefruit, peaches, apples, and berries. She would not track those. She goes, if you'd like to track them, she goes, that's fine, because if you want to feel like you're tracking everything, that's great. But she said, if you look at your meal or your snack and you see it's like 25 carbs for your snack instead of 15, but it's because you had one of those fruits or vegetables that are higher higher carb, but they're low on the glycemic index, then she said she wouldn't even look at that. So she's not going to count those when she looks at my food log. So she said you might as well not even track them. Non-starchy veggies, so like she's talking like peppers and onions, and so basically like corn and potatoes, she said she would track. Even though sweet potatoes are pretty low on the glycemic index, she said she would still like track those. So any like starchy vegetables, go ahead and track them. But like green beans, and which I thought green beans kind of fell on the starchy vegetable thing, but she said they're pretty low on the glycemic index. But and peppers and broccoli and cauliflower and zucchini and cucumbers, although she said don't track those. Again, that may be a sore spot for some people, and maybe some people may not agree. Also, she doesn't want me to cut out completely beans. She said beans are very, very good for insulin resistance because they have so much fiber in them. So she's like, wants me to incorporate beans into my recipes as well. And she said even whole grains if your body can handle it, like oatmeal. She brought up oatmeal, and I said, I love oatmeal. She said, then, if you feel like a bowl of oatmeal, get a bowl of oatmeal. But she does say, go ahead and track that, but as total carbs. So that's kind of where she landed around all that kind of stuff. And it's something that she said we'll talk about every month when we meet. We'll kind of talk about things. I'm just supposed to write down questions like, what about this? What about this? That type of thing. Protein. She said focus on protein. She did talk a lot about lean protein such as poultry and fish. I said I don't eat fish. And because my iron levels tend to kind of be on the lower side, but not too low where I have to take a supplement, she does want me to also incorporate more red meat in my diet because she saw my food log did not have much on it. And I said, I just don't crave it. And I said, there's times when I really, really crave red meat and I'll have it. But honestly, like I don't cook a steak well. So I don't eat steak very often because I don't cook it very well. And I just don't gravitate towards that. And she said, well, just try to incorporate once or two times a week, try to incorporate some sort of red meat in your diet. And if you don't eat fish or seafood or anything, then just stick to your turkey and your chicken. She said to do moderate fat, not high fat. She says that she has a lot of her clients who assume that when she says low carb diet, if that's the type of client she's working with, then they automatically go to high fat. And she said, no, this is not low carb, high fat. She prefers to do moderate fat. Now she did ask me my preferences on certain things, like she goes, is there anything you use that's fat free or low fat? And I said, well, honestly, like I don't like cream cheese and mayo and sour cream. I can't do those full fat, and even yogurt, like plain yogurt. I said, I have tried to do full fat on those, like when I was doing keto and low carb before, and I couldn't do it. Like it does not, I don't like milk to begin with. So for me, I told her, I said, I can only handle fat-free milk. I can only handle light sour cream, which I told her, I said, I don't even like sour cream anymore. I prefer plain non-fat Greek yogurt in place of sour cream. And I told her, I said, but I do like full-fat cheese. I like blue cheese, I like feta cheese, and I like full-fat cheese. And she said, well, there you go. There's your balance. She's like, because she's not a real fan of some of the light, low-fat options because tend to or be a little bit more processed. But she said, if you don't like it, then I'm not going to tell you to eat it. So she's like, you can compromise by using full-fat cheese, regular cheese, by saying you're using the light cream cheese, light sour cream, or the plain non-fat Greek yogurt. I just also told her, I said, I'm not a fan of like regular full-fat yogurt. I don't like it. Don't like full-fat milk. And she said, that's fine. But let's keep your fat moderate, not high fat and not super ultra low fat. Let's just keep it moderate. And she said, don't focus on calories. And I said, well, my app does do calories. And I said, I'd like to spot check my calories because I tend to be on the lower end of the calories. And she said, well, try not to focus on that number when you are tracking. And I mean, she did give an alternative of not tracking, of using an app that doesn't track calories. And I said, well, I already paid for this app. I already like this app. And I, told her, I said, I like to share my numbers with people. And she said, that's fine, but just don't focus on it. She's like, focus on feeling satisfied. Focus on eating when you're hungry. Focus on that type of thing. So I'm coming on to 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of go quickly through the rest because I think I've actually talked through some of the stuff I've already done my notes. The other thing she wants me, the third thing that we talked about besides food, second thing, besides the food plan, and that was sleep, prioritizing sleep. I told her menopause has caused me to wake up 2 or 3 times a night. I can't go back to sleep. She suggested magnesium, and I said, yes, I do actually have a magnesium supplement that I can take. I just forget to take it. And I said, she goes, does it help? And I said, well, my problem is not falling asleep. My problem is I'm waking up at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., and then I can't go back to sleep. And she said, well, maybe the magnesium will help you. She's like, what are you doing when you wake up? I said, usually I have to go to the bathroom. It doesn't matter if I've drank something right before I go to bed or 3 hours before I go to bed. I have to get up at those times to go to the bathroom. And she said, yep, that is menopause for you. And I said, then sometimes I just can't get my brain to calm down. So she did suggest, turning off any TV shows and like spending my last 30 minutes, 45 minutes before bed. She said preferably an hour of reading because I told her I love to read. She said reading is much better for your brain to go to sleep. So she said just prioritize sleep. She said if you are working on a project and that means that you finishing that project is going to cut out some sleep, she goes, sleep first. She goes, you have got to try to get between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And I don't even know what that's like. So we'll see how that goes. But she really wants me to try to keep a sleep log, which I have not started doing yet. I need to do that. I actually forgot about it until I started writing my notes down. Oh, there was a third thing, stress reduction. And we didn't really talk a lot about that. We kind of ran out of time. And so she said, we're going to talk more about stress. So I think I actually kind of talked about everything. Any supplements she suggested, she said magnesium at night. She said, make sure I'm taking a good probiotic, getting my electrolytes in, taking collagen, which I do all that. I think that covers everything. Like I said, the next time I'm meeting with her will be in January. She said we're going to go over some exercise plans. She told me it would be very, very, very slow to begin with because basically we're starting off with a sedentary lifestyle. I did tell her I do my bike every day. I try to get on the treadmill, but I've been kind of getting off the treadmill. So she said, we'll talk about getting back on the treadmill. And then she said eventually she wants to talk about kind of doing more weight-bearing exercises. I told her I would rather stay home and do my exercises. I told her, she goes, she goes and send me another survey of what kind of equipment I have at home so she can work with that. And then she said there's a lot you can do at home and that's not going to be, she said it's just very important when you're in perimenopause that you do exercise because there can be bone loss and things like that. So we're going to talk, that'll be our main focus. We'll go over my food log with her and then our main focus is to kind of work on an exercise plan and just debrief on how the eating plan is going. So that is everything. Hopefully I didn't go through that too quickly. I hope that answered people's questions that I've been getting and any future questions so I have this video to point people to. Let me know if you have any questions and have you ever worked with a registered dietitian? What has been your experience? Has it been positive? I mean, I've only had 2 meetings and they have been positive so far, so I'm feeling very hopeful. But yes, I'd like to hear all your thoughts and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.